Hi everyone. We're going to go over some things in the Renaissance. Now this slideshow is incredibly long. It's got 49 slides. So if I were to dictate all of these things to you, it would be probably an hour in length. So I'm going to go over some things in brief, and then you guys can go back and read the slides in more detail on your own. So this is the Renaissance. Now the Renaissance is the French word for rebirth. And really what it is that after the Black Death, society is growing and changing. And it starts in Italy. So we are applying to new forms of painting, literary forms, which also talking about architecture and social structure. So this Renaissance, the rebirth of society, is after that dark late Middle Ages period. Now, here are some things that are associated with the Renaissance: humanism, secularism, individualism, rationalism, and virtue. Now, some of these things almost seem as though they are conflicting. However, when we talk about individualism, we are not necessarily talking about um, enlightenment ideas. What we are talking about is seeing one as a shepherd of your faith, and being an individual who is in control of that. It's not like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. However, all these other things, that civic responsibility, that rationalism, humanism, again, are kind of a throwback to classical Greek and Roman ideas. So a lot of these Renaissance thinkers, artists, architects, individuals used the Greek and the Romans as their primary inspiration. So here is a beautiful chart about cause and effect. Again, I'm going to have you read some of these. However, Renaissance, again, is emerging primarily in Italy. And there's the Florentine period, good things are happening in France. It's also going to be spreading to Rome, Milan, and Venice, and then crossing the Alps. Italy is the hub, the center of the Renaissance, and a lot of it has to do with the trading network that Italy had established. So we have these wealthy principalities, if you will. Remember, Italy is not unified, so these little nations themselves are very wealthy. They're caring for only the people in their area, and again, they are trading with the East. So they have lots of money, they have new ideas, they are able to recover from the Black Death and push themselves to economic success. And then these ideologies are going to again cross the Alps and then turn into this Northern Renaissance, which is a bit different than what we see in the Italian Renaissance. So again, the Italian Renaissance is about that crossroad of cultural change. We are going to see these urban city states emerging because the people are living close together on waterways, and they are connecting with the outside world. So that money, all these things. It also is going to lay the foundation for literacy and education, particularly for the noble people. It is not something that's going to trickle throughout all of society. However, literacy is on the rise generally. And again, creating those well-rounded individuals with that humanistic approach. So I'm going to have you read individually about these city-states. So humanism is a very vague term. It really just is a representation of being like that Renaissance man. It's having understanding of all different areas of life and culture. So who are these people? A humanist can be writers, they can be artists, they can be members of the church, they can be leaders. They are not just one type of people. So here are some characteristics of humanist scholarship, and you're going to be reading about this: the humanist school and the establishment of the liberal arts. I mean, you guys still get a liberal arts education, so the Renaissance is still impacting us today. Some of you may go to liberal arts colleges, get bachelors of arts, which again is in direct relation to this time period. So humanism again also has a change of architecture. We're going from a late Middle Ages, more like a Gothic look, to more of an influence from the Greek and the Romans. So we're going to start seeing domes, we're going to start seeing pillars. In Florence, they had lots of this Renaissance architecture. Let's talk about Petrarch. So Petrarch is really important because he's considered the father of humanism. And he is somebody obviously who's not alive during the Renaissance, but is looked at as this first humanist thinker. People are reading his works. They're saying, wow, these sonnets to Laura, they are mind opening and they are more in connection with the whole like human being, the well-rounded human. Dante with this Divine Comedy, Boccaccio, you guys are going to find out I'm horrendous at names. Both medieval, but writing in the vernacular, huge deal. Writing in your native language, which typically things were written in Latin or some other type of text, so that way people could read it across. But now we're going to see people writing in the pride of their native tongue and having that be translated. Christine de Pizan, we're going to see Vala, we're going to see Della Mirandola. So again, all these different people are going to be putting their works out there for others. So again, we are still, it's not crazy modern. It's still, we have landed elites like nobles, and then 90% of that population is going to be peasants. Serfdom, again, is slavery. It's going to disappear in Western Europe. However, in Eastern Europe, serfdom is going to exist like well into the 1800s. We're going to also have townspeople with very low wages. These would be like, again, your remnant guild mates, arranged marriages, dowries, father-centered family, like that patriarchy. And women really don't have any rights. There are going to be works that come from women during this time period, and they do talk about women in Renaissance schools. However, they were far between. There was very few. So again, a lot of times we talk about women in history, and we're like, wow, look at these women, they're going to school. However, it really was only just a very few handful, and they were extremely, extremely wealthy. This is what Italy looks like in 1494. Again, reminder, Italy is not unified and will not be for another 400 years. All right, so there's going to be some wars that occur. We're going to talk about these again when we do like a review of unification and things like that. However, there's going to be two different claims to the throne. There's going to be the French claim to the throne and the Spanish claim to the throne. And what ends up happening is Spanish influence actually rises in Italy during this time. And it ends up with a division of Italy. Machiavelli is a really important character of this time period. So Machiavelli writes this book in 1513 called The Prince. And it really was about Florence. And it talks about this idea of this realpolitik, which is going to influence absolute rulers well into the 1600s. And it's all about how you have to put your country before your own self, that you don't rule basically based on these conservative principles of like the way it was, that you have to actually read what's going on and how society is changing within your country and then adjust to that. That you have to sometimes balance your religious views and your country's economic views and then make a decision as to what path you're going on and then go and defend that. So a strong prince could end this instability and also be like the moral compass for the entire country. It is an idea that kind of redefines what it means to be a ruler throughout many monarchies, and again is still read today and is seen as one of the greatest works to come from the Renaissance. So we're going to be moving into the Northern Renaissance here very briefly. We only have a few more minutes, but you can see the Holy Roman Empire. I always consider it to be like a confetti of different nation states. So to look at this and say, wow, look how disorganized, disunified Central Europe is. So this is going to exist, really, this confetti-like arrangement is going to exist for another 100, 200 years. We're going to see the emergence of a stronger Austria, but it's still going to look really disorganized up until the Congress of Vienna. That was one of the main goals of the Congress of Vienna in 1820. So what's going on? So there's going to be this shift from these feudal to unified national monarchies. So Central Europe is going to start changing. Like I said, this is where we see that emergence of that dominant Austria. And France is also changing. So we had the Hundred Years' War. So they are like readjusting, reestablishing their monarchy after having a lack of leadership and redefining themselves as a great power. A lot of us forget that France was a major player up really until the French Revolution. After the French Revolution, France is this falling star. But through the 1400s, 15, 16, and even 1700s, France is this massive world power. They are a dominant force in Europe, perhaps the greatest nation in Europe for almost 400 years. Spain was really like a beacon of Christianity. So we know that Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, their influence is going to be widespread, also very controversial. We have to talk briefly about how Ferdinand and Isabella, they really were trying to secure their borders because they were greatly fearful of the Ottomans. So the Ottomans were a very technologically advanced empire that had navigation capabilities and were very present in the Mediterranean. Spain, having so much coastline, felt as though that they were exposed. So they were trying to create a buffer state when they went into Italy, to establish a stronger Italy so that the Ottoman Empire was less likely to reach the coast of Spain. In England, we are going to actually talk a bit about this when we get to the Protestant Reformation. So we get some new monarchies heading there. We'll talk about Henry VII and their relationship with his wife, his passing. So there we go. Really briefly, we're going to quickly talk about the Northern Renaissance and some of their differences. So the Northern Renaissance is really going to be leaning on that Italian Renaissance. However, there's a big difference in the culture. And again, it focuses, it's a little darker, if you will. It's darker in art, it's darker in following, and it really is all about the Bible. So connecting with the Bible, it is going to give birth to the Protestant Reformation because of the stress on this. Northern Renaissance, we're going to see the high sale of indulgences. However, it again is going to lay that groundwork for the Enlightenment scientific revolution, and the realpolitik ideas will be influencing their monarchs. So we have to talk about the Gutenberg printing press. So we're printing the first text Bible with that movable text, Latin and Greek classics. And again, this is about spreading that literacy throughout Europe. We got to talk about Erasmus. He is a huge player in that Northern Renaissance. He is, the prince of the humanists, following Petrarch, looking at the school language, and talking to priests and getting that information out there. He used the Greek text of the New Testament and later on published his own works. Sir Thomas More. Again, I'm going to have you guys read about all these other individuals so we can get through